Welcome to Dylan with its guide to how to beat the War of Independence in Sid Meier's Colonization, the 1994 version. This will tell you basically everything you need to know about beating the War of Independence. It's actually not that hard as long as you follow some basic guidelines, and I'll actually show you some examples of how everything works. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually understand how combat in Sid Meier's Colonization actually works, roughly. You don't need to know everything, but you just need to know like an outline, basically. A user by the name of Brett figured this out a long time ago, back in 2004, about 20 years ago from today. And what he did was he took a look at the actual numbers that come up in the game. And what he determined was that the bonuses that you get in the game, so let's say that you attack somebody, you get a 50% bonus for attacking them with a unit. If you have also a veteran bonus of 50%, those bonuses are actually multiplied, they're not added. It's not that two 50% result in one 100%, it's that you multiply twice. So here it says attack equals your strength times K. K is not really important. It does change based on your difficulty level, multiplied by bonus, etc. So if you have a unit with strength 3 and you attack, that's 3 times 1.5. If you have another bonus, that's times 1.5. If you have, say, an ambush bonus against the REF of, say, 100%, that's multiplied by 2. What you end up with is that you have a effective strength of 13.5. There's also a special minus 50% for not having rifles as well. That's hidden in the game, it's not displayed to you. So that's why you tend to win against strength 1 units, such as colonists that don't have guns or natives that don't have guns more often, as long as you have guns. This also applies to cannons. Cannons are assumed to have guns. Another good reference for Sid Meier's Colonization is the Strategy Wiki guide for it. I'd definitely check that out if you'd like to. They are pretty good at telling you what you need to know, but not everything. So now that we know how combat works in general, let's take a look at this spreadsheet here. On the left-hand side, you have the strength of the units in the game. You have their strengths without bonuses on the second column here. Veterans get a special plus 50% bonus, but that does not make them better than Continentals. Continentals are the upgrade of the veteran that you get during the War of Independence. So when you declare independence, it's based on your revolutionary support in your colony that the veteran is standing inside of, they will get an upgrade. If you have 100% revolutionary support in your colony, 100% of your veterans that are standing in the colony will get an upgrade, but there is a limit to the number of veterans that get upgraded automatically. I think it's half of your population in the colony. I'm not 100% sure about that. When I had my War of Independence, I didn't get more than 7 veterans upgraded to Continentals in my colonies, because I believe I didn't have more than 15, like I didn't have 16 people. So I think that might be the limit, or it might just be based on difficulty, I'm not sure. So up here at the top, we have the Tories, the Royalists, the REF attack bonuses. They get plus 50% bombard bonus, and when they attack, they get the same plus 50% attack bonus that everyone in the game gets. So the result is that versus a settlement, an artillery, which has a strength of 7 when it's attacking or defending in a settlement and it's not damaged, has a strength of 15.75. A cavalry against a settlement has a strength of 13.5, and a regular against a settlement has a strength of 11.25. Now, if we go to the defensive section at the bottom, we have your artillery, your continental cavalry, and your continental regulars. We're assuming that you have a fortress in the settlement. We're assuming you have a fortress in the colony, which gives you a 200% bonus, which means that you multiply the unit inside the strength by 3. So artilleries have a strength of 15 because they have a strength 5. They only get that plus 2 when they attack. Continental cavalry have a strength 15, and continental regulars have a strength 12. Now their odds against the REF when they attack are in this section right here. Against artillery, you have about a half chance of success, slightly less than that. Continental regulars, of course, have a less chance than that. Against cavalry, you have slightly more than half chance, you have 53%. Against regulars, you have about a 57%. So just remember that we have about a half chance of success in a fortress, which is the highest defensive structure in the game. It takes a decent amount of time to build it. It takes like 300 tools total, 200 for the fortress, and 100 tools for the fort. So there are basically 2 plans of action when fighting the REF. When the REF attacks you, they also get another bonus that is in the manual, and that is basically their support in the colony is added to their strength. So if you have, let's say, 14%, let's say you have 14% support for the Royalists, when the REF attacks you, they're going to get a 14% bonus. And remember, that is multiplied, that's not added. So you really want to have 100% revolutionary support in any colony that's going to be attacked by the REF. And you can actually make it so the REF will attack specific colonies, which I'll tell you about shortly. Now, this bonus does apply for you. If you have 100% revolutionary support in a settlement and you attack that settlement, you get a 100% bonus, which is displayed here. So these are the strengths if you attack a settlement that has 100% revolutionary support. Now, I'm assuming here with these odds against artillery in a settlement and cavalry in a settlement, I'm assuming that you did not build a stockade or any defensive structures, because if you built those defensive structures that helps the REF, it turns out that you're actually better off not building defensive structures against the REF, which sounds weird, but it's true. You can also get foreign intervention, which gives you some units that can help out a little bit, not a whole lot of units, but a few. But they also give you a 50% bombard bonus, just like the REF has when they attack your settlements. You'll get that 50% bombard bonus when you're taking back your settlements. And those strengths are listed here, with, of course, their odds right next to it. So when attacking a settlement, you actually have like 68%, 71% odds against a settlement with 100% revolutionary support and no stockade, no defensive structures. Ideally, you take that settlement back before the REF has the time to fortify. If they fortify, I'm not sure if they do. I've never actually tested if they fortify or not. And that's with cavalry. If you have the bombard bonus, you have like a 76% chance of success against artillery or a 79% chance of success against cavalry. Now, if you fight the REF in the open, you have your strengths here in this column. Against cavalry, you're going to win about 56% of the time if you always use continental cavalry. Against regulars, you're going to win about 60% of the time if you always use continental cavalry. You have significantly better odds of taking back a settlement that does not have defensive structures, and you have 100% revolutionary support than fighting in the open. Fighting in the open, you're going to lose about half the time. If you use regulars, you're going to lose more often than that. Your best bet is to always attack the REF, but to always attack them when they are on what would be defensive terrain for you, such as a forest, swamp, hills, mountains, etc. When you attack on a forest, your odds shoot up to you win 65% with cavalry against cavalry, 69% win with cavalry against regulars. And now your continental regulars have actually semi-decent odds of winning, 60% against cavalry and 64% against regulars. Now that's with a 50% bonus of forest. With hills, that goes up to a 71% chance of success against cavalry with cavalry and a 75% chance of success against regulars. So you're only going to lose 25% of the time against regulars if you attack them on a hill. That gets even better on a mountain. Against a mountain, you have really good odds. Against a cavalry, you have 76% of success and 79% chance of success against regulars. This means that you can reduce the number of horses that you have to have on hand or to breed as you fight the War of Independence. Whenever you attack artillery, they have a minus 75% negative when they're out in the open. You don't want to use artillery against anything out in the open. This applies to you too. So you should never attack a unit that is not in a settlement with artillery, and you should never do anything with artillery but leave them in a settlement or attack in a settlement, one or the other, because they'll get absolutely stomped. That minus 75% is multiplied to everything that came before it. So it's a huge negative. So my conclusions are here at the bottom. It does have some things I haven't told you yet. So the first conclusion is that the odds of ambushing on hills are basically the same as attacking a 100 revolutionary support settlement, 71% versus cav, 71% versus cav. And attacking a settlement with foreign bombardment support is as good as attacking mountains. You have 79% versus cavalry. It's slightly better to attack a settlement with full revolutionary support if you have bombard, but it's not a big deal. It's only a 3% difference. You also have 3% better odds attacking the REF on an open field than standing behind a fortress. A fortress is the best settlement defensive scenario, and it's very slightly worse than attacking with no ambush bonus. Because of this, standing behind your walls is not going to work. You're going to bleed much more equipment and people if you defend than if you attack. even if they're on an open field, which is the worst possible scenario. You also have the bonus of, if you're the attacker, you can re-equip damaged units with muskets and or horses. This only applies if you're in a settlement and you attack an open field directly next to the settlement, because that's the same as attacking outside. That allows you to re-equip on the same turn that you're attacked. I would not do that if the REF is on a forest, swamp, hill, etc. In that case, you want the ambush bonus. To get the ambush bonus, both of the units need to be outside a settlement. Your unit needs to be outside a settlement, and the REF have to be outside a settlement. When that happens, then you get the ambush bonus. That also applies to the natives in the rest of the game. They get ambush bonuses against you as long as both of your units are outside a settlement. Basically, you're acting like the natives in this case. So the REF drops 4 regulars, 1 cavalry, and 1 artillery per drop until you get to the point that you've taken out enough regulars. Then they start dropping a bunch of cavalry and 1 artillery. They never seem to drop more than 1 artillery. This means that for a normal drop, you need to attack successfully 8 times. That's because you have to attack a cavalry twice and an artillery twice. When you beat an artillery, it becomes damaged, and then you have to attack it again. You cannot repair artillery in this game. I don't know why, but that's just a decision that the developers decided to do. Once an artillery is damaged, it is damaged artillery. It cannot be repaired. So I haven't calculated the exact odds, but I'd expect to lose anywhere from 2 to 4 times versus a drop on open terrain. Since you need 8 successful attacks to beat a drop, that means that on open terrain, you have about a 50-50 shot. I'd actually expect to lose about 6 to 8 times versus a drop on open terrain. So let me edit that real quick. No, I would say it might be about 5 to 6 times, because attacking artillery is super easy. Once you get past the cavalry, you have to only deal with regulars and a super easy to kill artillery, which has about a 60% chance of success versus regulars. So expect to lose about 5 to 6 times. That's a lot of horses. Against forested terrain, you're going to be looking at only losing about 1/3 of the time in each attack, which means that you might lose anywhere from once to maybe 3 times usually, which is going to cost you. With every loss, you lose horses as long as you only use cavalry. Horses basically function as your health pool during the War of Independence. The more horses you have, the longer that you can fight. You don't want to get down to muskets if you can help it. You can still fight pretty effectively with just muskets, but you're going to be more effective with horses. Typically, your odds with horses are about 5% better than your odds with just muskets. That might be small, but depending on the size of the REF, that 5% could actually be a lot of combat. The REF appears to obsessively focus down one city at a time, and they won't do much else other than attack that one city that they drop at. And it'll announce which city they're dropping at, because they'll tell you that REF forces drop at, say, Ironhole or at Proxima. Because of that, having a fortress city kind of makes sense if you want to put some artilleries in it, because they'll pound their heads against the artilleries, but the artilleries only have about a half chance of success either way. So you're much better off having a reaction force of cavalry to attack until you wipe them out in one turn. If you wipe them out every turn that they drop, they will never get the chance to attack you. I just got done with fighting my War of Independence yesterday, and the REF only got the chance to attack me once. They dropped 22 times, and only one of those drops got to attack me. So I don't know what happens after they take the city. I think they'll just move on to the next closest city. I'm not sure. I have not successfully lost a city so far. You also need to understand that the REF drop spawns the turn that you declare independence on an ocean square of a coastal city that you own. They don't actually sail out from Europe. They don't spawn at the tile that you spawned at to enter the new world. They spawn next to your coastal city. And if you don't have any coastal cities, they won't spawn anywhere. Once you build a coastal city, they will spawn immediately. You can actually kind of use this to delay the War of Independence pretty long, but there is a time limit on the game. I think it's 1850. That is a lot of time, and I don't really recommend delaying it. You can get it over with and continue to play afterwards if you'd like to do so. So because they don't sail out from Europe, you can't intercept them on the way to your colonies. You can intercept them with ships on their way back, but I don't recommend it. I don't recommend wasting time building a bunch of ships. Ships, frigates specifically, take a lot of hammers and a lot of tools and a lot of time. It can be done, but it's very hard. If you build forts and fortresses, they'll actually take shots at the man wars and they will sometimes sink them. There is actually a potential bug in the game where if you sink all the man wars and there's still Royal Expeditionary Forces trying to land, the game might get stuck and never end. So that's something to be aware of. You kind of don't want to do that because it happens sometimes. So one of the biggest things that you should know is that the logic of which coastal city is targeted seems to be based on population, with a preference for less well-defended colonies. So what this means is that as a result, you can pick the REF landing site by having a high population colony with the least or no defenders, lure them to a mountain, and then slaughter them. This also means that you can leave small colonies like 5 people or less, and the REF will prefer to hit the large settlements instead. So, if all colonies have equal population and especially equal defenders, the REF will choose the colony that is towards the top left. I suspect the programmers of colonization did a linear search from left to right, top to bottom, to determine which colony to hit. And every drop goes through the logic of choosing the highest pop, least defended colony. If you move more troops into a colony to defend it, the actual square of the colony, against REF forces, say after wiping out a stack, they'll pick somewhere else to drop they consider easier to crack with good population. So let's actually show in the game which cities that they would pick. Alright, so this is my entire empire on one screen. I did have more colonies. I had a colony right here on this tile. I had a colony right here on this tile, here on the tobacco, and up here. I tested it out, and the REF will heavily prefer to attack high population cities. My city of Safe Harbor here has a bunch of defenders, including some artillery. Proxima has a bunch of defenders, including some artillery. Ironhold has a bunch of defenders, including artillery. Gunny has only 1 artillery defending it. Because of that, the REF looks at all your colonies and decides what's the highest population with the least number of defenders. Because there's only 1 artillery and gunny and there's nothing else to defend it, they always pick to land here. So they spawn in this ocean tile touching gunny. I've got a non-veteran dragoon standing on the mountain here, and I think you could put any unit you want on the mountain here, and that forces them to land on this mountain. They will never drop on top of the dragoon. They will always drop on the unoccupied tile that is touching the ocean square that they spawn in. Now I can get away with this in gunny because there's only 1 ocean square. If there were 2 ocean squares, I think it might be random, but I'm not sure. I haven't been able to test it. I haven't had the REF spawn in any colony that has more than 1 ocean square. It might be the top left, I'm not sure. Based upon how I think they decided to pick which colony to attack if they have the same number of defenders in population, chances are it's the top left. So I finished this War of Independence and the REF dropped 22 times. Only once did they ever drop anywhere else. They dropped right down here at Proxima, and they went onto the cotton tile. I had the same number of defenders, the same population, all that. Maybe it's very, 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 very slightly random, I'm not sure, but 21 out of 22 times, they followed the logic of attack the high population center with almost no defenders. This also holds true if I had 15 colonists in gunny and 15 colonists in ironhold. If I had 2 artilleries in both colonies, they would attack gunny because gunny is furthest to the top left. My other colonies that I had only had populations of up to 3, and they never dropped at those colonies. They will always prioritize your high population centers if they can reach them on the coast. In terms of how many troops that you need to beat the REF, the bare minimum number of troops that you need to win against the REF of any size is actually something like 20. This is because you need enough troops to always get 8 successful attacks off, but you're going to lose sometimes, and you have to re-equip those troops. You also need enough troops to fill in for the next attack while those troops are rearming. In this game, when you swap the equipment on a colonist, that ends their turn. So you can move a soldier back to a nearby settlement and then give them their horses back, but they can't move again. So a good idea is to have a settlement that is nearby, specifically within 3 tiles of the place that you're going to be fighting. The main place I fought was right here on this tile, and my soldiers could move 3 tiles from that tile to rearm. So they moved down to Lumberton. I had wagon trains waiting with horses, and horses stored in Lumberton so that they could rearm. Once they rearm, on the next turn, they can fight again. If you use this tactic, you should be able to pull off a win against the RAF, regardless of how big the RAF is, as long as you have enough horses on hand. And as long as you have like probably about 20 dragoons. I would say that would be like a safe bare minimum. If you want to be certain that you're going to win, I would have like 1/3 the size of the REF. That's if the REF is big enough that the number that you need is bigger than 20. If you really want to be safe, you can win with half the size of the REF. And if you want to just win without even trying, you can have an equal number. That's if you played long enough in the game that you've decided to just build a gigantic empire, basically, which is fine. The game's a lot of fun. The game's more fun economically than it is militarily. Like right here, I actually ended up winning in like 1671 or something, but you could easily play for longer. The game goes on until like 1850 at the latest. It is going to take you quite a while to win the War of Independence because they only drop 4 regulars, 1 cavalry, and 1 artillery at a time, assuming that you have no more than 2 artillery according to the internet. I haven't tested that, which is going to take you a while to get through, say, 120 units of the REF, or it could be even more than that, depending on how many bells that you generate. The REF also grows based on the number of Liberty bells that you generate in the game. So that's basically how you can defeat the REF. I fought an REF that had a size of like 120, something like 71, 73 regulars, 27 cavalry, 27 artillery, and I think I lost about 25% of my battles. Half of the time I lost when they landed at Proxima, because I don't know why they landed down there, and they landed on an open field. But whenever they landed on this mountain, I won the vast majority of the times. I did end up running out of horses, and I had like 3,000 horses or something on hand and equipped to my people. So horses are really important in this game. They're also really important because your dragoons move at 4 movement speed instead of 1. This means that a dragoon moving along a road can move 12 tiles. A soldier can only move 3 tiles along a road or along a river. So my dragoons could easily respond to anywhere that they needed to go, but for the vast majority of the time, all they did was stand here and then attack the RAF as they landed on the mountain. So there you go, that's basically all you need to know. Supposedly, according to the internet, having more than 2 artilleries in a colony will cause the RAF to drop multiple drops at once. I haven't been able to test it. It might be true, it might not be. You really don't need artillery to win the War of Independence. I would recommend putting 2 artillery in the colonies that you don't want the RAF to attack, that have high population. If you're worried about a medium-sized colony being attacked, I'd put 1 artillery inside of it. But other than that, you should just put 1 artillery in the colony that you want them to land at, that has high population, to trap them. So I hope we learned pretty well how to win the War of Independence, and I hope we have a lot of fun with Colonization. It's a very fun game. It is old, and it's a little janky and clunky, but it's a good game. If this guide was helpful to you, leaving a like would really help the guide to be seen by other people that might also be helped by the guide. If you'd like to see more, you can always subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.